So this is another special edition of On Cooldown, our weekly WoW news show, but we are going to talk about 9.2 and our early impressions regarding the zone, Zereth Mortis, and how we kind of felt in the raids, well, the bosses that were available for testing.
It was pretty cool. We're gonna get right into it because personally I was pleasantly surprised.
Me too.
I played a little bit of the quest line from Zereth Mortis. Okay, now off the bat, the zone is gorgeous. In a vacuum, I always like the concept.
Right? I mean,
I like the colors. I like that it takes me away from all the depressing colors or the heavy
or the
heavy palette that you have in like all the other zones, like maybe excepting Bastion. But it's actually really good and it's easy on the eyes. It's actually a really nice concept because I was a big fan of Nagrand all the time, and obviously I'm bringing this up again because you do have floaty bits of terrain and it's really cool. And when you see those orbs, by the way, fun fact, those orbs remind me of the lock that was holding down Azoth back in Najara. Remember the pattern of the spirals?
Yeah, there must be a connection.
There might be, hopefully there is a connection. I mean, they take pride in their little intricacies and the little, you know, all the little things that they suggest, Easter eggs. So I'm assuming that there might be a connection sometime because, and I think when you open one of the doors, just before you get into Zereth Mortis, you have to pick up 2 shards, and I clicked it really quick, so I couldn't really tell, but I swear the name of one of the shards was Titanic something.
Well,
what does Titanic have to do with the first ones? That's a little bit weird. There's some probably hints there, and we can see exactly how the story unfolds. And personally, I was hoping to see a little bit more of the Nathrazim. You do have a bunch of Nathrazim there in the questline, so that's kind of hinting. I was, hoping that they would.
Did you meet Mal'Ganis yet?
In the storyline, no. I know he's a boss in the raid.
Yeah. You kind of meet him during the quest line.
I didn't play that much. No, I played the
spoilers. Sorry.
I think I unlocked a bunch of stuff. There were a lot of cinematics that weren't done. I kind of skipped through all that. I didn't really get into the cinematics. I'm not gonna be involved because there were a lot of placeholders of here you look shocked, here the jailer appears or whatever. So I kind of didn't pay too much attention to that. But I was really impressed by the zone, the concept of the earth floating around. The mobs, I mean, they're okay. They're guardian of the first ones in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The general gist of the Zereth Mortis zone, I gotta say the trailers and the early footage from the presentation didn't really didn't really give it justice. It's refreshing. It has a weird, I would say, satisfaction towards it, just moving around. And as Flame mentioned, it is refreshing. It is something like that really helps out with all of that orange, sad, brown themes that we were used to.
Just to quickly cut into what you're saying, it actually feels, however much it doesn't feel on one side as a WoW zone, it feels like a WoW zone. It's the green.
Yeah, it has this.
It has that little naturey feel, that specific blue and green that Blizzard likes to use in their normal zones, like old content, old zones, old stuff like that.
Yeah, this is the thing, and also the theme and the vibe of the zone, they're one thing, right? But as soon as you start there and you start questing and getting a little bit into the story, granted, we have said on record we kind of don't give a fuck about the Shadowlands story, but the in between storylines and characters you meet along the way, and the whole mechanic and the actual language that you start seeing around, because you cannot really understand what they're saying in the quest and stuff. It has this mystery I kind of lost as a player within WoW, and it's nice to feel that back. So it is very promising in terms of what's available now on the PTR. Now, there's good news still regarding the campaign and what you're going to have to do in 9.2 once you get there. You're going to be able to skip once you're done with the full story. Then on alts, you'll be able to skip, I think, the first major 3 chapters. So those are like the biggest ones. I would say the biggest that are time consuming. So that's really, really cool right off the bat. No more grinding it out with the alts. And just from the time that we've played on the PTR and going through to the zone, I would say that how it's looking now, even compared to how Quartia looked in 9.1 PTR, fuck it, even the Maw, this looks a lot more finished and polished, and it has okay, mobs from the Torghast scene, whatever, you see that, but the creatures, man, they look so cool.
It definitely feels like a more alive zone, which is so weird to say because, like I said, I'm not vibing the whole cosmic bit, and I think they're really going into the cosmic bit, and fine, fair enough. I mean, it's inevitable at this point, but like if you take that out of the way, out of the equation, and if you just look at the terrain, the zone, the color, the mobs, the feeling, it just feels like an actual zone. It feels alive. It has more doodads, man.
Yeah, doodads. But again, man, it has that mystery. I don't know if you felt this, but I was just curious to discover more.
Yes, it felt more. It made me curious. Like, what's going on? Where was all of this and all the previous?
I know. So this is what I'm saying. It's promising, and I have to say, 9.2 is WoW's turning point, and every bit of detail will count in order to make or break the game. I honestly believe this, and so far so good, I would say, with the zone. Now we have to talk a bit about the raid experience we had as well, because it is a big part of it.
It left a similar impression.
Fuck yeah, man! I loved it.
It's open. It reminded me of Antorus Ionar.
It's so big.
It just takes you out of that depressing, claustrophobic.
After Sanctum, you do feel a lot better.
Sanctum was kind of
enclosed.
Was very monochromatic in an abstract way. It had like 3 or 4 color palette theme to the whole stuff. So it's and that's fine. It's fine. Just make it heavily themed, just like Nathria was, a little bit reddish, a little bit dark. But again, reddish, dark, gray, dark. Now I'm kind of hoping for something a little bit more bright.
It's the same story you had at the end of Legion, because I don't know if you remember, we were so fed up with all the greenery around. We wanted such like a different palette of themes all around. It's exactly the same thing. So much more, so much Torghast, so more Sanctum, and Sanctum of Domination wasn't a bad raid.
No.
We're not saying that,
but it's nice. It's nice to have the contrast.
Going into testing Skolex and Dausegne.
I think it's the second boss, the whatever, the chick and the worm. Okay, we actually got a little bit on the last couple of pulls because we were raiding with the guild by then, but we did check the boss and it had like a unique Unad vibe from Crucible Storm, where you had the 2 circles that you had. So the mechanics is really cool. It was heroic, so we don't know exactly what Mythic has, but for the heroic, you have like this wave of circular darkness that rolls around through the entire arena, which is pretty big. And then you have another one from kind of like, it's not opposite side. I think they're like something like 9, 12, and 3 o'clock.
Yeah, something like that.
And you have to, and leaves a dot, and you have to wait for the dot to drop, and then you have to go through the other side, which might be a little bit annoying for melee. And
no, I'll tell you what's annoying for melee in a second on the Skolex boss. But I'll let you finish on just Dausegne.
And it was otherwise the mechanics felt okay. It seemed like a pretty fun. It didn't seem particularly complicated. We just didn't really catch all the mechanics. I kind of saw them all while I was dead. Was just looking at what people were doing and listening to the calls. It felt pretty easy, and I mean, it kind of has to be. It's one of the first few bosses of the raid. It is outside. I mean, we only saw 2, but most likely the entire raid is going to be at the very most outside-ish.
It's the Sepulcher.
Sepulcher of the first one.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's positioned somewhere outside, and the structures and the atmosphere around it kind of vibes in the same way Zereth Mortis vibes with Flame Scoffing over there. But that's fine. We're carrying on. So in terms of like the atmosphere and how you feel within it, definitely feels huge, and I would say a satisfactory extension of the zone you're going to be playing in. Now, the second boss we tested, and I would say like on this one, we kind of like really tested out. We didn't kill it, but we did a lot of pulls on it. This was Skolex, the giant worm. And
oh my god! And let's talk a little bit about the arena, man. Like that's such a refreshing change of pace.
Open space was huge.
So much open space. It felt a little bit daunting as a melee, but
nah. I mean, the fight isn't really that punishing. The punishing bit. Well, we'll get to that for melee.
I actually played the BM there because they needed a range. I was gonna go survival, so I cannot really talk about the melee bits.
I can.
There is one particularly annoying range mechanic that I didn't have an issue.
The teleport, where they teleport?
No. So it's something that probably doesn't affect melee that much, but affects range more. There are a couple of things like debuffs, and there are like some AoE stuff that you have to take out of side of the range and be the furthest away from the range. And then the boss does a cone, and does the cone for the entire arena, and it gets wider and wider as you're further away from the boss, and it's very difficult to get out of it. So BM is fine, it's not a problem. But if you're playing something like a warlock and you don't have a gate, you might have a hard time moving in and out. So I will probably won't be surprised to see like specific mechanics to dodge that around, because it's a very large cone. It's like I don't know, 30 to 40 yards even larger.
I've seen at the beginning of the cone, so it was pretty easy as a melee. But there's one mechanic on Skolex that was really, really annoying. So very, very often he spawns some blue-ass puddles on the ground.
I saw that.
Which you have to dodge, and they spawn really, really fast, and they activate really, really fast. And for melees, that was like the hugest, I wouldn't say disappointment, but it was a pain in the ass.
Are they targeted at your...
Yeah, they spawn underneath your feet, and you'll have to move. But that's the thing, since we were like in a semi-puggish group, people were over the place, and whenever they spawned, you would have to run and dodge the other people's swirlies or whatever. That's fine. But the crucial thing about that is, if you get hit by that, not only do you take damage, but it drains your stamina to like crazy numbers. You're gonna feel like you're playing like on sticky ground and stuff. Cannot.
Oh, it slows you down?
Yeah, it gives you, it lowers your haste as well. That was like the most annoying mechanic out of it, because I felt they spawn way too fast. So I was playing sub-rogue, right? I popped my Shadow Dance. The spawn is just finished, right? I dodged them successfully, ready to pop my Shadow Dance and symbols and all of that. After 2 seconds, I didn't even finish my Shadow Dance window. They spawned again, and they spawned like all in front. So I had to move back and disconnect with the boss. And this happened really, really often. That was the most annoying. Other than that, up until the point we got I think we got to the enrage part of the fight.
Yeah, we got a couple of times there.
Yeah, the overall pack of abilities and mechanics and vibe and all, it's pretty good. I think some folks from the group said that it felt a bit overtuned for heroic.
Well, yeah, considering how well we were actually doing with mechanics, it had a lot too much HP. I think it had
for heroic,
and
yeah.
we had like some considerable damage there, and we were kind of dodging pretty much all the mechanics at some point, and we were making very little progress on the boss. So
yeah.
I mean, that's always subject to change. Even the spawn timer of
it's the first testing. So
yeah, but what actually impressed me the most, and I have to say this because I feel like WoW has lost this bit, however well it was in raids and everything that it was doing over the years. WoW has lost a little bit of the scope of the fight, of the scale of the fight. You are fighting a boss, and Skolex is a good example. The arena is it's a big worm, sure, but the arena is so large, and the reason for that is obviously the cone mechanic, which extends to the end edge, and it's huge. Also, the tank mechanics, the tank auto attacks are big cone cleaves. And if I was looking at the tanks and hearing them talk, and from what I understood, you essentially have to stay at like, I don't know, 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock so that there's enough space when you switch bosses, because it cannot cleave to both tanks.
I got caught in one of their cleaves.
I got one shot.
I got dead immediately.
It reminded me like Sludge Fist, where but it doesn't split. You're not supposed to soak the auto attacks, but it cleaves, and the area that it cleaves is very huge. So that's one of the reasons why the arena is so large, so that it can just leave players enough room to like maneuver around. And I feel like over the years we kind of lost this aspect of like this is a huge fucking beast, and we need a lot of space to tackle, like a dragon boss. We haven't had a dragon boss in a long time. We have to like dodge the claw, dodge the front, and stuff like that. Yeah,
I mean, this is the thing. It's very early on, and again, I have to like really underline this, as opposed to what we tested it for 9.1 or 9.0.5 or whatever. This looks a bit more finished, I would say. Not in the sense that they're close to being ready, but definitely a lot more polished
into it.
Yeah,
into
for
the
sure.
Details as well.
Plus the quality of life shit they're bringing on. I mean, I was mega impressed. Not impressed, but happy that from the get-go you're going to be able to skip the story.
Well, it's likely
good. I want to say the progression system, the Cipher, no player power whatsoever. You can.
Oh my god! Yes, I didn't get to it, and I was worried about how it would turn out.
It's basically you want to explore more of the world, and you want to do that. This is the cool thing about it, right? You get into the Cipher, and you start getting quests for it and unlocking bits and shit like that. It doesn't affect your power whatsoever. So that's wow, what a concept, right?
Finally. And listen, I'm not saying that you guys should trust me or anything, but I'm a huge lore nerd, and I very much dislike the concept and the scope of the lore. And even so, I am so impressed with 9.2 and how it's looking
so far.
And what the feeling I had, it felt nice. It felt nice to fall into Zereth Mortis just with Pelagos and that's it. And there's nothing there, and you have to like look for it on your own, and you find NPCs one by one by one by one, and that felt incredible. That felt like I'm actually in a new world. That felt like expansion level content. And maybe the bar has been lowered over the years, but that's actually really cool. And obviously, a lot of people saying I'm not coming back until 10.0, and that's fair enough. But 9.2 has to make a dent, and 9.2, from what we can see so far, will make a dent into this negative perception of the game, which is more or less
I would say rightfully so. And it may sound that we are inhaling lots of copium here, but it's all
what we bought.
Yeah, but it's all based on what we tested so far. And again, we strongly say this, it's like the first iteration of the PTRs, first iteration of the bosses we tested. It's early impressions, right? So we have to make it clear enough.
Like 8 more bosses, and
and we haven't even like scratched the surface in terms of like what awaits in 9.2. We just started, the first steps within the campaign, and shortly unlocking a bit of the Cipher. But this is so amazing, and I was really, really worried about the Cipher thing, because I honestly thought they would like time gate the shit out of it, similar to how they did the story for the Covenants and shit like that. But it doesn't really appear. Maybe we didn't really go that far within the story.
Probably.
But if they said this multiple times, if they put this on the table, listen, you can do this if you want, or you can just go around and do your raids and your dungeons, and you're going to be fine. No player power affected. So this is a very good recipe, I would say, for like people who have been talking about coming back to the game, but are feeling really daunted by all of the systems and all the gating and all of that shit. It's not required.
It's really good. And if you have played any amount of 9.1, because this is one last point that I wanted to make. This fact actually stood up to me really, really in a big way. I think when in the first cinematics of the new campaign, you're told basically that, oh my god, you defeated the jailer in Korthia, and we fought the jailer in the mall, we fought the jailer in Korthia, and now we're going to Zereth Mortis. We didn't really, like, Korthia didn't really seem like a story heavy.
Nah, man. Korthia was a compromise, man. You know it was a compromise.
It was a compromise, but it didn't really feel like a zone. Didn't really feel like it was set to the story, because most of the time you just like swap back and forth to Torghast, rescue the Primus, and all of that. And Korthia just happened to be like a tool. But Zereth Mortis actually feels like a zone, like a world, like where a story can unfold. And that's, for me, even though I don't particularly like the concept of cosmology in Warcraft, I'm still excited to find out exactly what it is. It looks like it can give me a good story, so that for me is a big plus.
Yeah. That being said, once again, this is promising. We are awaiting for new builds on the PTR. Obviously, we didn't talk too much about the tier sets. We have tested them for Hunter and Rogue on the PTR. I'm pretty okay with the sub one.
The thing is, with the tier sets,
we have to wait for that, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of tuning for tier sets.
Exactly.
We cannot make like, we're going to talk in the MoCast podcast a bit more when we talk about specs and stuff regarding these tier sets. But to make a long video discussion on what the tier sets are and how they perform, it's a waste of time, because this is the first iteration.
They can only change it like a week leading up to the patch's release. And we can only say that the concept is cool. That's about it.
Mostly. I do also want to add that, as opposed to, again, previous PTRs, when they pushed this one, they pushed it directly with changes to some of the tier sets. So
they did the changes before we even actually had the time to test it.
Yeah, so this is the thing, right? They're coming out with a lot more content prepared and tested and tuned, and I'm really, really hoping this is the thing. They're on I would say a very good trend on communicating and being open. I just really hope they maintain this and they start listening to the players community, to the community's feedback and the players' feedback, because I strongly do believe that the result of them being finally open since 9.1.5 is actually being felt in 9.2 so far. It feels like a lot of the things we talked about, not us necessarily, but the community, content creators, theory crafters, people on forums, again, it feels like a lot of what was said was actually implemented in one way or another, and that's very promising.
That's very promising, and it's a breath of fresh air in the sea of negativity. And listen, don't get me wrong, hold them accountable for whatever they fucked up and whatever they were supposed to.
Fire Bobby Kotick. Enough yachts, motherfucker. Get the fuck out.
For what they needed to do and what they promised us and didn't deliver, that's fine. But it's time. I think it's time to give them a chance to, you know,
when they do
prove
good,
us wrong,
yeah,
and to let it. I mean, I'm not a shell by a long shot, but I am desperately looking to get the game that I love back.
Yeah, this is the thing. And again, I am desperately, anxiously awaiting to discover more of this new zone. It feels that way. It gives you that thing. But that being said, we'll conclude it here. Let us know in the comments, like, if you tested it out, if you saw, you know, within the video, you know, the footage that we showed or whatever, or how you generally feel about this 9.2 thing. And we'll continue the conversation from there, maybe in our Discord, maybe in our streams or whatever. Definitely to talk about this, because this time it's really worth it. And you know what else is worth it?
Our Patreons.
I was gonna say becoming a Patreon, but sure, Patreons are always worth it, baby. Why are they worth it, Flame?
Well, they are supporting pretty much everything that we do here, and they're making a lot of this possible, because right now YouTube as a form of
no good
revenue, it's a little bit sketchy.
It's
and
shit.
Listen, it's not required, but it is very much appreciated, because we do actually want to do content that you guys want, and not necessarily that YouTube algorithm finds it fun, and that's kind of hard when, you know, YouTube does its thing. So for all of you who are supporting us on Patreon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are very grateful that you like our content. If you, dear viewer, like to be a part of the team a little bit more and find out what goes behind the hood, have a chat with us, get maybe a wallpaper, or get engaged into the creative process, check the link down below to the Patreon page. There are a couple of tiers. I'm sorry, I touched. We're not supposed to touch, I know. But there are a couple of tiers there where you might find something that you like.
And if you like... And if you like a lot more of this, always consider becoming a Patreon. Not required, but very, very, very appreciated. Thank you for watching.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.